I returned home early this morning, turning on the lights in my dark, empty room. Phew, I'm beat. I flopped down on the couch. Grabbing the remote from the table, I turned on the TV. I checked the weather forecast on the morning news. It's getting pretty chilly. Winter is almost here. Time flies so fast. As I thought about this, I lit up a cigarette I bought at the convenience store earlier and took a pre-sleep smoke. Every morning, it's the same routine. It's been like this for 5 years now. My name is James. I've never gotten used to living alone in this empty house, nor to the feeling of loneliness. I never imagined my life would turn out like this. It's all a result of my own actions. Sigh. I was supposed to have a brighter future. In the silent room, I found myself sighing and reminiscing about the past. I met my wife when I broke my leg and was hospitalized. She was a nurse at the hospital where I was staying, and I, with a broken leg, struggled to get used to a wheelchair and crutches during my painful rehabilitation. I feared I might never walk again. I felt anxious and worried. It was then that she started talking to me and treated me kindly, seeming like an angel. Talking to her, with her cute smile, made me feel really happy. Hey, after I get discharged, would you like to go out for dinner with me? I asked her almost every day. She turned me down many times, but finally, she gave in and handed me a note with her contact information. Yes, finally, I've got a date. The night before our first date, I was so excited that I had trouble falling asleep. On our first date, I was completely captivated by her. I had only ever seen her in scrubs before, but she wore a white floral dress and stylish accessories. After asking her out to eat several times, I confessed my feelings and asked her to be my girlfriend. I was over the moon when she said yes. Eventually, as our relationship progressed, we started considering marriage. You know, I'd like you to meet my parents soon, she said, her face turning red. I want to introduce you to my parents too. Let's plan to visit each other's parents next weekend. Okay, thank you. A few days later, while I was at work, she called me. Hello, what's up? I have something to tell you. Hey, I'm at work. What's going on? Sorry, but I just couldn't wait to tell you. She sounded really happy. What is it? Today, while I was at work, I felt nauseous and my stomach and back hurt. So I was allowed to leave work early and went to the obstetrician. And lo and behold, I have a baby. Really? I shouted out loud in surprise. I left work early that day, bought her favorite cakes, and as soon as I got home, I hugged her tightly. She had a smile filled with joy. She was 3 months pregnant. We're so lucky to be blessed with a baby so soon, I said. Indeed, when we told our parents about our shotgun wedding, I was afraid they'd oppose it, but both families were actually thrilled. So, we get married, and my wife safely delivered a healthy baby girl. I felt truly happy from the bottom of my heart, looking at our adorable child. After spending a month staying at her parents' home, my wife returned home with our daughter. She was busy with the unfamiliar tasks of childcare every day. Taking care of a newborn was harder than expected, especially with the baby's night crying, which really wore my wife out. The baby cried every few hours, leaving no time for sleep. I wanted to help my exhausted wife, but my job in sales meant I couldn't avoid working late and socializing. Our company's performance was declining, and we in the sales department were desperate to bring in business. The CEO began to say in the morning meeting every day that the business was struggling. Our quotas were increasing, and the employees' anxiety was growing. I had just had a child. A cut in my salary would be a big problem. I poured my soul into every sales call, working diligently. Then, one day, something happened. I arrived at the office a bit early, turned on my computer, and was about to start work when Mr. Smith, the CEO, called me. Could you come to my office? I need to discuss something important with you. My supervisor glanced at me briefly. I had a bad feeling about it. The air in the office seemed to tense up for a moment. I straightened my back and knocked on his office door. "Sit down. You know our company's been struggling, right?" "Yes. The thing is, it's become difficult to keep the company going. I hate to say this, but you need to start thinking about your future." "What?" I felt like the blood drained from my body. "Does that mean layoffs?" As I struggled to believe what I was hearing, I was also driven by a need to do something, pleading with Mr. Smith. "Can't you reconsider? I've given my all until now. This is just, I can't accept it so suddenly. I understand the company's difficulties, but it's a problem for me too if you just spring this on me." As I said this, trembling, Mr. Smith looked into my eyes more sternly than before and started speaking. "I need you to understand. I wish I could keep you. It's with a heavy heart that I'm telling you this. You're still young. There are other places you can work." Mr. Smith said this and then looked away, downcast. True, our company's average age was high, and other employees had kids still in school, which would be costly. In comparison, my child had just been born. There weren't immediate hefty child care expenses. In the end, I accepted Mr. Smith's offer and left the company through early retirement. How should I tell my wife about this? She's already struggling with new parenting. When I explained the situation to her, she just said, "Can't be helped," and didn't say anything more. But, "Will you be able to find a new job soon?" That seemed to be her only concern. Actually, I had something on my mind. Someday I would like to save up money and open my own store. I had such a dream. I was able to retire from the company and also receive a small severance package. So, I thought I would use the money to open the small pub of my dreams. That's what I thought. When I told my wife, she just said, "I see," and seemed uninterested, saying, "Child care is tough right now." Then, I began preparing to open the pub. First, I started working part-time at a local bar I had noticed before. I also enrolled in a culinary school to learn about managing a food business, keeping busy every day. I had no time for household chores. Gradually, my wife and I began to argue more, and soon, every conversation turned into a fight. The bright and kind woman my wife once was had disappeared, replaced by a completely different person, quick to anger. Then one day, it happened. My wife finally snapped, and we had an unprecedentedly huge fight. "You don't have any intention to help with child rearing. It's like I'm raising our child alone. Quitting your job suddenly to chase a dream seems thoughtless to me," she said. My wife said something like that. I was quite selfish. My wife was an excellent nurse and would have advanced her career if we hadn't had our child. She wanted to return to work early, but couldn't because of the long waiting list for daycare. I didn't even help raise the kids, and I was the only one chasing my own dreams. Looking back, it was unfair. Back then, I couldn't understand her point of view and only argued back. One day, when I came home from work, I found a note from my wife about divorce on the table, and my wife and daughter's belongings gone. It was only then that I realized how selfish I had been. Holding the note, I cried in the now empty room where my wife and daughter used to be. But it was too late for regrets. Later, I went to my wife's parents' house, and after many discussions, we ultimately agreed on a divorce. Our daughter was young, so custody went to my wife. Alone, I threw myself into work to escape the loneliness. The room, now devoid of my wife's smile and my child's voice, was quiet and filled with emptiness. I finally understood the saying, "You don't know what you've got until it's gone." I do regret getting divorced. I hope that one day we can be a family of 3 again. With that hope, I continued working towards opening my pub. And then, 5 years later, I finally managed to open my pub. Initially, there were few customers, and I worried about whether I could keep going, but the manager from the bar where I used to work part-time visited often. He gave me various advice on the menu, pricing, and interior layout, gradually increasing my clientele. Now, the business is starting to pick up. Then, one day, As I was cleaning up after a day's work, a woman came into the bar. "Sorry, ma'am, we're closed for the day." As I said this and went out to the hall, I was shocked to see the woman standing there. It was my ex-wife, visiting the pub for the first time. "Sorry for dropping by so suddenly." "No, it's okay. Have a seat." I only saw her once every 3 months for a visit with our daughter, and we hadn't met recently because our daughter wasn't feeling well. Judging by my ex-wife's pale face, I could tell something was wrong. As I wondered, her phone rang. She then said, "Sorry, I have to go, but I'll come back another day," and ran out of the pub. What happened? Worried, I called her, but she didn't respond. A few days later, my ex-wife came to the bar again. I was concerned and immediately asked her what happened. "What was wrong the other day? I tried to contact you, but couldn't get through. I was worried." After a long silence, she finally spoke, and I was hit with shocking news. The truth is, our daughter is hospitalized at a nearby hospital. What happened? Our daughter, she has a kidney problem. When I came here last time, her condition suddenly worsened. She needs a transplant, but we can't find a donor. I failed the medical tests, so I can't donate to her, and I just don't know what to do anymore. My ex-wife was sobbing, her shoulders shaking. Apparently, my daughter's illness had progressed without many symptoms showing, and she was lonely and struggling with the unfamiliar hospital environment. My ex-wife asked me to come and cheer her up. The next day, I closed the pub and headed to the hospital where my daughter was staying. When I opened the door to the hospital room, there she was, my daughter, asleep. She looked a bit thinner. Holding my daughter's hand, I shared with my ex-wife what I had been thinking about since yesterday. Use my kidney. What? I haven't done anything fatherly for our daughter, just regret so far. I've been away, but I care about her as much as you do. It's a strange way to show it, but if I can be of help, I want to save her. I conveyed all my feelings to her. After a silence, she spoke with tears in her eyes. "I had no right to take her away from you. I was selfish back then, and I've always wanted to apologize. I'm truly sorry." She apologized. "No, the selfish one was me. I'm sorry." Then we both reflected on our selfishness. Afterwards, I went through the tests immediately, and it was confirmed that there was no problem with me undergoing the surgery. The kidney transplant was a success. The recovery went well, and I was able to leave the hospital earlier than expected. On the day of my discharge, the three of us got into a taxi, and my daughter, her eyes sparkling, said, "Do I get to go home with Dad?" "Right. Shall we all live together from now on?" she suggested. "Really? I want that," my daughter answered excitedly. I made eye contact with her. An indescribable atmosphere filled the air. "All right, let's all live together then, huh?" When I said this, my daughter was so happy that she held my hand and said, "Yay." And so, after 5 years, we started living under the same roof again. Smiles returned to the once silent room, and we spent each day closely, as if making up for the time we were apart. I vowed never to lose sight of what's important again. To make them happy for the rest of my life. That was my promise.